So I'm going to let go of the place where this monk scolds the other monks for not asking the question to the Buddha when he was in front of them. And now he says, how, friends, is consciousness called, distracted and scattered externally? Here, when a monk has seen a form with the eye, if his consciousness follows after the sign of the form, is tied and shackled by gratification of the sign of the form, that means he really gets into seeing something and starts thinking about it, is fettered by the fetter of gratification. That means that there is craving and identification with the sight and liking it. Then his consciousness is called distracted and scattered externally. Okay, you get involved with it. You make a big deal out of a sight, or a sound, or a taste, or a smell, or a touch, or a thought. So it goes through all of these different sense doors, saying the same thing. And how, friend, is consciousness called not distracted and scattered externally? Here, when a monk has seen a form with the eye, if his consciousness does not follow after the sign, you have a sight, you don't get involved with it. You come back to your object of meditation. Is not tied and scattered by gratification of the sign. Is not fettered by the fetter of gratification. Now he's let go of the craving. Don't make a big deal. It's just a sight, it's just a sound, it's just a taste. It's not something to get caught up in and involved with. Allow it to be there by itself. Relax into it. Let go of the craving. Then his consciousness is called not distracted and scattered externally. Now, this sounds kind of complicated, but it's not really. It's when you let go of the distraction. Just because a hindrance arises and pulls your attention away doesn't mean that you have to start fighting it and you have to start pushing it away. What happens when fear arises? What do you do when fear arises? I don't like it. I want it to stop. I'm afraid. I want to run away. Can you run away from your own fear? I don't think so. You're not that fast. So what are you going to do? See, I have a lot of students that they have fear arise when they're sitting in meditation. They don't know why it arose. It's all of a sudden, I'm afraid. What happens in your mind? That's a feeling I don't like. I want it to stop. And the more I make a big deal of it, the more afraid I become. Now I'm gonna run away. I'm gonna stop meditating because I don't like that fear. Do you know how to overcome fear? It's real simple. Laugh. Now laughing, I tried to explain yesterday. laughing is a real special, fast way of overcoming hindrances. Because you go from, I'm afraid and I don't like it, and then you laugh, and then, well, it's only fear, there's nothing in it. Why should I be over-concerned with it? Let it go. Don't need to get involved with it. See? But when fear arises, almost everybody misreads why the fear is there. For thousands and millions of lifetimes, your mind thought it was in control. And now you're starting to show your mind that it's not in control. That everything that arises when you let go of that craving, you're starting to see the impersonal nature of everything. That's anatta. It's the impersonal nature. Now, right after you let go of a distraction, fear, and you relax, what happens right after that? Your mind's alert. Your mind is very much in the present. Your mind is very clear, and your mind is pure, because you're seeing the impersonal nature of this. And when you see that often enough, it causes fear to arise. And what happens with that? Your mind is like a little kid that's throwing a temper tantrum. Okay, I'm on the ground. I don't like this. I'm going to make you afraid. So you laugh. And when you laugh, it changes your perspective. From, I'm afraid and I don't like it, to, well, it's only this fear. How silly is that? My mind wants to be a little kid now all of a sudden. So you laugh with it. No sense in getting involved with this terrible dislike of something. Just allow it to be there, laugh with it, and that changes your perspective. You come back to your object of meditation and you're peaceful and calm, and you don't have the fear there anymore. Well, doesn't that mean I can do that with anger? Doesn't that mean I can do that with frustration? Doesn't that mean I can do that with dislike of anything? It's my choice. Okay, now you can choose to be happy, you can choose to be sad. That's for you. I can't help you with that. You make up your own mind. The more you practice smiling and being happy, the more uplifting your mind becomes, the clearer you see things around you and you understand things much better, and you don't have so many emergencies coming into your mind and causing all of this scatteredness and all of this dissatisfaction to arise. Now you're starting to see why I like this sutta. Because that's what it's telling us. The more you have an uplifted mind, the less scattered you become. The more you smile, the easier it is to recognize when your mind starts to get heavy. And when you start recognizing that more of the time, it's easy to, well, just let it be. Don't need to pay attention to that one. It's nothing. You don't have to take it personally and make yourself suffer. You can let go of the suffering. And it's your choice. You can keep questioning about, well, I don't know how to do that. How do I let go of suffering? I've already told you how many times. But, you know what I think about that word. Well, I need to know more. No, you don't. You need to do. This is not about thinking. This is about doing. And the more you practice smiling, the better your mindfulness becomes, the easier it is to recognize the pain that you cause yourself, and you can let it go or not. Up to you. I know it sounds too simple. There was a thing on Netflix. It was The Life of the Buddha. It's still there. It's just called Buddha. So if you go to Netflix, you can go to that. And that's from the time before he was born until he died. Okay, it's 55 sections. They're about an hour each one. It's real interesting because after the Buddha became enlightened, I say enlightened, I hate that word because it doesn't mean what it should mean. I like the word awakened because he woke up. He was walking around in his sleep, and then he woke up and saw the way the world really is, how things are. But it gives you the idea of what was happening. And there were a lot of Brahmins that were very educated, and they were very spiritually minded, and they would come and they would ask him these really difficult questions to answer. And he would spend 2 or 3 minutes giving an answer, and that was it. And these Brahmins, they'd sit back and they go, that's just too simple. It's got to be more complicated than that. And there were Brahmins that really didn't like the Buddha because it was too simple. His teaching was too easy to understand. Well, consider this. The Buddha was teaching farmers that were not well educated. They were smart in a lot of ways, but about growing things and some things of life. But he came along and he said, you know, if you really want to let go of suffering, then you got to do this. You got to smile. You have to be able to relax that tightness and your tension in your head and your mind. You have to follow the Eightfold Path. And he explained it to them in a way that really worked. It worked quickly, and it was fun. That's something you never hear. You know, I was at a conference in Oklahoma City, and I was one of the first speakers. So I gave a talk on joy and how happy you were supposed to be, and everybody in the audience, well, they were smiling, it was great. And I ran across this one teacher that she was going to be giving a talk a little bit later, and I heard her say, you know, I actually feel good after that talk. I thought that everything was about suffering. Okay, go suffer, I don't care. I'd rather have fun. See, it's okay to have fun. It's actually a lot easier to live your life when you smile and appreciate how beautiful everything can be. Just like the other day when we went to the zoo, I had more fun with the little kids, watching them and seeing how they were amazed, than I did with the animals. You can ask them, how much was I smiling?
They were so in tune. They were so in tune.
It was
The whole
great.
environment.
So life is suffering? No, I'm not buying it.
Buddha knows that.
There is suffering in life, yeah. You got your ups and downs. You're not going to be particularly laughing and smiling when a relative dies, but you're going to have more balance in your mind, and you're not going to suffer so much. Now, an interesting thing that I learned when I was setting up a hospice in where I lived. And I was with a lot of people as they were dying. And I was always trying to lift their mind up and remind them to remember times when they had fun and they helped somebody else and they smiled. It was a real interesting time in my life because I got to do this all the time. I was working in a nursing home, I was with people as they were dying there, I was with people when I would go out to their houses and be with them. So I got to teach the family and the person that was dying to have a mind that was accepting, not fighting, not trying to make things be the way they wanted it to be. Somebody that's dying, they don't have time to mess around. They don't have time to be foolish. They know that they're not going to be around much longer, so they better clear up some stuff and develop a mind that is accepting. Now, a lot of times people will ask me to send loving and kind thoughts to somebody that's dying. But I don't send loving and kind thoughts to somebody that's dying. I send them thoughts of accepting everything in balance. How do I do that? I bring up the feeling of equanimity, and I radiate that feeling of equanimity not only to them, but also to the family members. I know this works. My mother died a few years ago. I spent the last 6 weeks of her life with her. And I taught her how to be more accepting. She was already pretty accepting as it was. She was 94 years old. Anyway, the day that she died, a lot of the family members came in and we were sitting around. She was at home, so we were sitting around just waiting for her to die, basically. And I started feeling a lot of sadness and just dissatisfaction with what was happening, and my mother was dying. She was the matriarch of the family. Anybody had any problems, they would go and talk to her about it. So she was really important to the family. So what I started doing was radiating equanimity to everybody in the room. And we were just kind of chit-chatting very lightly, but everybody was very aware of what was happening with my mom. And she finally expired, and nobody was crying. And we sat there for a few minutes, and finally one of my relatives said, "You know, I don't know whether I should laugh or cry." My mother suffered at the end. She could barely breathe. So it was not an easy thing, but she accepted it. That is equanimity, learning how to accept what is in the present moment without flittering around and liking this and disliking that. So when people ask me to send loving and kind thoughts to somebody that's dying, I always send acceptance and equanimity. Does it help them? Absolutely. Because they have acceptance, they're not fighting whatever is happening, and their mind is much more peaceful and at ease. After my mother died, and the other relatives said, "I don't know whether to laugh or cry," I said, "It doesn't matter now, she's not around. You can laugh, you can cry. Either way, whatever you feel like doing, what do you feel is appropriate?" Now, my family is very much Christian, okay? And they think I'm some kind of weird. Because I'm a Buddhist, and I walk around in robes, and I shave my head, and they think that that's really strange. But I had family members walking up to me and thanking me, because they felt that balance, that acceptance. There was no excitement. There was no fighting with what was in the present. And that was as much a lesson to everybody else as it was to my mother at that time. This is what meditation is for. It's not just for sitting like a lump on a log. Okay? It's not just sitting. It's living. And knowing what is the appropriate thing to do at the appropriate time. There's times you're going to get caught, and you're going to forget, and you're going to have anger, and you're going to have frustrations, and all the myriad of different emotional states that can arise. But when you sit in meditation and you start seeing how these hindrances arise, and you start recognizing what you need to do with them when they do arise, then when you go out there and you start doing your life, you're going to see it. You're going to see more and more closely how you cause your own pain, how you dislike this feeling or that feeling, and you fight with it, and you get frustrated with it, and you get agitated by it, and you condemn it, and you get really caught up in the emergency of a hindrance. Letting go of the hindrance is pretty easy. Recognize that your mind is distracted. Release it. Don't make a big deal out of that pain. Relax, smile, come back. But it didn't go away. Okay. Do it again. But it still didn't go away. I have all this tightness in my head. Okay. Do it again. This is a game of play it again. Okay? And I really literally mean play. I tell people continually, life is supposed to be a game. Why don't you play? Why are you so serious with it? As you learn how to recognize hindrances and let them go and not get caught by the emotional upset of different things, you're going to get more and more efficient with what you're doing in the present. You're going to get better at doing things because you're not, excuse me, you're not blocked by emotional upset. Oh, he said that, he did that, I hate that when that happens, I don't want to be around that person anymore. How many upsets do you have to go through before you recognize, I'm doing this to myself, I'm causing myself pain. Why do I want to do that? Now you hear me talk a lot about smiling and laughing and making life into a game. What am I actually saying? Change your perspective. Stop being so serious. How many times do you have repeat thoughts when you're upset? Well, who's attached? Who's causing themselves all of this pain? You can't blame somebody out there because you're doing it to yourself. So, what to do? Learn how to recognize when you have a distraction and use the 6 R's. Recognize it, release it, don't make a big deal of it. It's just a feeling. Did you ask that feeling to come up? Did you tell yourself, you know, I haven't been depressed for a while. I might as well be depressed now. Right? Did you tell yourself to do that, or did it just happen without your being very mindful? Okay? Remember, mindfulness is remembering to observe how this happened. When you have quiet time, and that means when you sit, you'll be able to recognize these things much more easily while you're sitting. But that gives you the advantage of being able to be more familiar with the hindrance when it arises, so that when you're out there and that same hindrance kind of starts to arise, you'll be able to go, oh, I'm doing that to myself. I don't want to do that. That's no good. Let it go. Let it be. Relax into it. Smile. Laugh with it. Now, this is a lot different than another kind of Dhamma talk that you might hear, because there's a big focus on suffering. All life is suffering, you know. And then they will tell you, with certain kinds of meditation, you have a pain in your body, put your attention right in the middle of that pain. You know what happens when you do that? It gets bigger and it gets more intense. I know, because I did that for 20 years. And there is a lot of suffering, because I haven't learned that it's impersonal yet. I put my attention and they say, now see its true nature. Well, there's heat, and there's vibration, and there's heaviness and hardness, and there's this myriad of different elements. And they never stop and say, and there is tension and tightness. They never tell you that. So as a result, you wind up with pretty severe headaches and pretty severe pains. But you get up and you start walking, and the pain will eventually dissipate. But they don't tell you that you're taking it personally. They don't understand what craving is or how to recognize it. And this is pretty major. What is craving? Craving is, I like it, I don't like it, mind. Now, I don't like it, I like it. Now it's the very start of your taking things personally. That's why the 6 R's are so important. And this is something that you can carry with you no matter what you're doing. Just remember to let it be by itself, relax, smile, come back to what you're doing while you're doing it without distraction. You hear me talk a lot about the 6 R's. Wow, this is boring. Why don't you talk about something else? You know, I had a student, he heard me give, it must have been 100 Dhamma talks. And he heard me continually talking about letting things be and relax and smile and come back. And one day he came to me, his eyes are really big and he's really excited. And he said, do you know what I figured out? I said, no, what? Well, I figured out if I relax and let go of the pain, it doesn't bother me anymore. And I said, you know, I've only told you that 100 or 1,000 times. How long does it take you to hear it? Well, it takes a long time, because we have set ideas of the way we think things should be. Doesn't quite meet up with reality. But it takes a while to convince you that there is another way, and it produces happiness and a sense of well-being, and it changes your personality so you don't have so many emotional upsets. You're going to start having more equanimity with everything. And that leads to one of my favorite words, contentment. You're going to be content. Do you know what the definition of contentment is? Gentle happiness. That's why I'm here. So I can show you that you don't have to cause yourself suffering. You don't have to. Just remember, smile, laugh, have fun. Change your perspective. life isn't supposed to be serious unless you want it to be serious. What's the fun of that? It's more fun to laugh and have fun, isn't it? And to help other people, show them that it's fun to have fun. That's our job. You know, a lot of people, they'll say, why am I here? What am I supposed to do while I'm here? Your job is to help other people let go of their suffering. Show them. Don't talk to them about it. Show them how to let go of the suffering. A lot of people are very much interested, I'd like to be a teacher. How can I be a teacher? You be a teacher by your example, by your compassion, by your willingness to help other people go through their suffering so they don't hurt so much. That's why we're here. It's real interesting in my country, the huge amount of greed and anger and frustration that's happening through the whole culture. But when people come to my meditation center, guess what they learn? They walk out smiling. They walk out happy. And they know how to help other people by being happy themselves. I got the best job in the world. I get to show you. And then you get to show your friends how you change, how you have fun. See, the thing with human beings is we like to mimic people that are close to us. That's what kids are all about. They're going to mimic what they see you do. When they see you smile, when they see that you don't get angry and emotional, they're going to learn to be happy themselves. And they're going to learn how to help other people and how to practice your generosity with other people. That's our job. Some of us are going to do it better than others. Okay, so what? This isn't a competition. Well, I don't understand this. Okay, be patient, smile more, and you'll see.